My name is Lorenzo Patelli. I am one of the volunteers for the Ergon Professional Hub. We organize these short sessions for skill and development. Tonight we have Peter Covington, who lives in Denver and is a dear friend of mine, and he worked for a nonprofit in digital marketing until a few months ago, and now is exploring other opportunities. Tonight is going to talk about running ads on Facebook and the metrics and kind of the science behind it. And so you could understand how to run ads, or if you're just curious to know why you see certain ads, is going to reveal those secrets as well. So Peter is gonna talk for a little bit, and then he's gonna take some questions. You can ask your question in the chat for the sake of not bothering everyone and not having any noise in the background. We muted everyone, but at the end maybe there will be the chance to ask your question, but it's better if you put it in the chat. And Razib and I will monitor the chat, so if you have any problem even with the audio, you should be able to put something in the chat. So thanks, Peter, for entertaining us tonight, and the mic is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorenzo. And thanks for having me as well. I attended one of these a couple of weeks ago about building a digital presence by Luca Catini, and it was very provoking and I think helpful for me. So I'm glad I'm able to contribute here as well. I'm going to talk about Facebook, which includes Instagram too, Facebook and Instagram ads. And my goal tonight is to give a kind of like, it's going to sound very high level, but like the art or the methodology or philosophy behind Facebook and Instagram ads. I could easily send a whole bunch of emails on, this is how you set up this is how you build, this is how you maybe, practically speaking, build an audience or build an ad, and here are the ad dimensions you need, and here are the limits to the copy. So there's a lot of practical information out there, but it takes a little more, I think, experience and studying to understand kind of the methodology or the best way to use your money. Because I see a lot of times, and I started off this way too, I was not as efficient with my ad budget, and through mentorship and through experience, I got a lot more, I think, efficient with my ad budget. So my goal tonight is to present the structure on the most efficient way to run ads. So I'm gonna share my screen, and we can start with my presentation. All right. Let's see. Oh, sorry about that. This guy needs to disappear. Okay, awesome. Can you guys see, Lorenzo, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so how to effectively run Facebook ads, or why do I see the ads I do? So my goal, I think I already said this, but Facebook uses our data to deliver ads to us. And we're going to look at how Facebook collects data, show a couple examples of campaigns, and then explain why they were set up that way, and go through that methodology. So Facebook in order to run ads and figure out who to run ads to, they collect a lot of data from all of us on Facebook and Instagram. And there's two primary ways they do that. One is engagement. So every time I go, anytime one of us goes on Facebook and comments on, I don't know, a music band's post, or follows Nike, or engage, comments on a certain type of political or economic post. Like Facebook gathers all of our engagement information and starts building out a profile of who we are and what we're interested in. And obviously, and two, beyond that, there's certain things like our gender, our profession, the city we live in, if we're married, if we're single, etc. And so with how we engage on the platform, Facebook collects and uses all of that data. And beyond that, they also track us. They track us outside of Facebook. So with the Facebook Pixel, which is a little tracker that as an advertiser, you would put on your website, and it tracks everyone who's been to Facebook at some point on that device that they're using, and then visits your site. So if I look at Facebook on my laptop and then I go to I don't know, Lorenzo Patelli's his website, and he has the Facebook Pixel set up, like he can monitor who's looking at his website and what they're doing. And there's standard events and also custom events. So if he wants to track everybody who fills out a email newsletter form, or everybody who purchases a product or signs up for a subscription, or even people who look at a certain page on his website, the Pixel tracks all of that and adds that into your engagement. So and so it tracks all of that on your website. And beyond that, it would be like on Lorenzo's, but it'd also be on my website, and also be on Razib's website, and it's on thousands of advertisers' websites. So if I go look at Lorenzo's website, and then I go look at Razib's website, and they both have the Pixel, Facebook will know that people interested in Razib's product or his service are also people interested in Lorenzo's. So they've built out a network. Basically, they've built out a network that tracks all of our behavior across the website, wherever the Facebook Pixel is. And even too, on most phones, if you have the Facebook app, it does that between apps. So it's a very robust way to track people's behavior. And they don't, for privacy reasons, they don't disclose this information on individuals. So I couldn't say, I want to see, I want to see, Lorenzo visits Razib's website, so I want to target Lorenzo. It doesn't show me that individual information, but it builds out cohorts of people, and it collects large amounts of data, which is going to allow me to build out audiences, which we'll talk about in a second. And they provide this data to marketers, to advertisers, so people running ads, which is a huge, for the advertising industry, it's a huge benefit, and we're going to see in a second why. So what you want to do is, one, use this data, and two, segment your audiences. So now we have a huge pool. We have a huge pool of data of people doing different things, and all of that being tracked. And I'm going to give quickly some examples, and then I'm going to some example campaigns, and then I'm going to go through what we did there and why that was the right way to do it, and why it worked. So I have one example is a lead generation. So getting people to sign up for an email list. Lead generation ads to a large audience of 3 million on Facebook were costing 80 cents, and annual lead value was 25. So 25 cents. So we had an audience of 3 million people, and we had said, I want to target people interested in A, B, C, and D, which is a very simple way to build an audience. And it was costing, for each email list sign up, it was costing 80 cents on average. And on average, each email address was worth 25 cents a year. So, if you had 100 email addresses from that list, were worth $25 in revenue. So that was, looking at those numbers, that's not a very effective way to generate revenue or run ads, it seems. So what we did to reduce the cost and improve the quality of these leads was to use video awareness and retargeting to solve this issue. So we started to use Facebook's like engagement data and said, okay, we want to retarget people who, we're going to run an ad with a video, and we want to retarget people who have watched 25% of that video. And then from there, the leads who signed up got free content and were dropped into an automated email campaign. So we took a large audience and ran a video ad, which was very cheap, and people who watched 25% of that video or more got a second ad to sign up for, a new give their email address and get a free piece of content. So instead of just having one ad running to everybody, we created there was two steps there. There was a broader and then a narrower audience. So we were kind of like, we were funneling down the audience. And that resulted, that whole campaign, so including the video ads and the lead generation ads, the cost went from 80 cents a lead to 25 cents a lead. And the annual value went from 25 cents an email address to $2 an email address. So there we see that we changed the approach to these ads, and something else changed, like the values changed. They got cheaper to run, and they got the results were more valuable to us. Let's see, I need to move my, okay, there we go. So, and so now we're going to go on to example 2. Situation was 4 times return on ad spend, but unable to scale at all past an X dollar amount a day. And an audience would burn out after 3 to 6 weeks of seeing ads. And each target audience in Facebook was between 50 and 200, depending on the specific campaign. And then running conversion ads to larger interest audience of 1.1 to 5 million was even less effective. So we were we went into Facebook and we selected a certain list of interests for this, and this was at Augustine Institute. So certain, interests related to the products, saying, I want to target people who are interested in, A, B, C, and D, and we want to run ads to sell product to those people, was what we were trying to do. And after 3 to 6 weeks, the ads would burn out. They would stop bringing in any sort of revenue. And doing that, expanding that audience to a larger number, was even less effective. And so what we did to increase the return on investment and be able to scale more was to set up a 3-step campaign. And this one's going to be more interesting. I'm going to talk about this kind of like this structure in a second. This structure is really the secret behind running social ads. So bear with me through. I think these examples will make a lot more sense in a couple of minutes. So to increase return on investment and scalability, we set up a 3-step campaign: awareness ads to a filtered lookalike audience, e-commerce category retarget, and dynamic product ads. And so I'm going to go into more details on these different types of audiences in a second. But instead of having one large audience where we said we're going to run, we want to sell product to this audience, this large audience that's interested in these general subjects, we said, okay, we want to create a lookalike audience. So we want to take our customers and create an audience of people like those customers. And that's using the Facebook pixel. And then we're going to take people who visit our website using the pixel as well, looking at certain e-commerce categories, and we're going to retarget those people with a different type of ad. And then people who look at individual products, and show interest in an individual product, we're going to target them with a third type of ad. So the awareness to a filtered conversion purchase lookalike, category retargets, and dynamic product ads. And so we went from overall having a 4 times our revenue on ad spend return, right? 4x return on ad spend. We went to the dynamic product ads being 11 times our ad spend. The category retargets between 5 and 6 times our ad spend, and the awareness ads to 3 times our ad spend. So we saw that at the bottom line, the least affected, like the least return was already at what we had originally, and it just built from there. And we were able to scale. We were able to scale our budget to 7.5 times what it was before. And so that's a lot of information. Like breaking that down. Why was that successful, and what did we do there? I'm going to go off just looking at, I think it was important to look at those examples, and looking at our time, I think I'm going to go off script here a little bit. So if I'm not in line with these bullet points, that's what's happening. So what we did was, Facebook collects, as we looked at the beginning, Facebook collects all of this behavioral data on people. If it's engaging on your website, or if it's engaging on other people's websites, which shows certain types of interests, or if it's the way they engage on Facebook. There's this huge pool of data, and they have a lot of very powerful algorithms. And so we have several, there's several different types of, so the best way to run ads on Facebook and Instagram is to target people through there's the journey from beginning to end. Somebody who first hears about your brand for the first time to their first, second, and third purchase. And this could be, this could be a consumer product. It could be a service. It could be paid. It could be free. Like whatever you want, whatever goals you have, whatever you want the customers to do, that's your product. And so they have very powerful algorithms that are able to take your customer base and look at the way they behave and the way they interact with your product, and say, we're gonna create a lookalike audience of people who are similar to your customer and who are more likely going to be interested in your product. And instead of going through and trying to find a lot of interests and find people in Facebook, letting Facebook do a lot of the work. So creating a lookalike audience, which is something that you start and then you expand it. But what happens is if you run some sort of like very cheap awareness or video ad to those people, you're able to drive a lot of traffic. You're able to drive traffic very inexpensively. And when I say inexpensive, I mean, maybe like $1, $2 per 1,000 impressions. You're able to drive people to your website. And the secret is to get people engaging on your website, because then you can retarget them. And so with what a retarget audience is you're using the Facebook pixel to monitor how people engage with your website. So if they look at your homepage, or if they look at your product page, or if they add a product to your cart, or whatever it may be, you're looking at what people do, and you're, based on those different actions, you are creating different audiences, and then also you're creating different ads to target those different audiences. And so what we're looking at here all of a sudden is we're looking at a customer journey of somebody seeing or hearing about your brand for the first time, visiting the website, maybe looking at a certain page or set of pages on your website, to looking at a specific product, to maybe even like putting the product in their cart and not purchasing. And what we're doing is we are segmenting people, and based on how they've engaged, like what step of the funnel they're in at that place, we're running a unique set of ads to those people. So it's and you can even further segment that by demographic and gender and whatnot. So you could say, we're going to run a certain set of ads to men who've looked at this page, and a different set of ads to women who've looked at this page. And that's really where that's where kind of like the key or the secret to running ads is. Because for Facebook, they make their money, Facebook makes their money through ads on Facebook and Instagram, and they can only make ads if people are on the platforms. And so what their goal is to serve up content and information to people that those users are interested in, right? So what I see in any of the other people on this call see on Facebook is going to be different, because I enjoy something different than Lorenzo does, than Raziv does. And so building very segmented ad campaigns really allows you to optimize your budget, because you're presenting things that are interesting to people. The other, you could create a very large interest audience of people interested in A, B, C, and D. It's several million large, and that would cost a lot of money to find the people who are actually interested and engage with your ads. So really creating so that's the secret to retarget. The secret to awareness ads, that first step in the previous example, is the secret to the awareness ads is to get people to your website. So the people who would be interested in your product or service to your website in a very inexpensive way, in order to get them engaging with your website, so that you can retarget them with very specific ads based on their actions. There's some other types of audience. If you have like an email list, you're able to upload you're able to actually integrate your email marketing system into Facebook ads, and you're able to, when you run a certain email campaign, you're able to target those people. It moves those email addresses into Facebook, and you're able to target those people with specific ads to complement it. You can also geotarget. So everything I've said above about targeting, you can also basically geofence or geotarget. Say, I want to do this, but only people in certain cities. So if you have, let's say you have some sort of franchise, or your product is in a physical store location, right? You have let's say 100 stores across the nation. You want to geotarget just to people who can actually physically go visit your store. That's something to keep in mind. Continued testing every couple of weeks. Go back, and on the ad creative side, every couple of weeks, go back and test something new. Try a new set of copy, or like a new design element or something like that. And then for a lot of there's a lot of practical resources out there that will tell you, how do you, once you're in the Facebook Ads Manager, how do you create a lookalike audience, or how do you set up the Facebook pixel and create events and custom events, and whatnot. There's a lot of practical resources out there, and I can send Razib the links to these websites. But Social Media Examiner is a great for practical how to set up, an ad set. Social Media Examiner is great, and so is AdEspresso. They're very good at explaining how you set up a specific type of campaign, right? Like the nitty gritty, like the hands-on. Sprout Social is very good. They're good at explaining how to create content, like how to create engaging content. And HubSpot's very good at content mixed with a little bit of kind of like content strategy. Sprout Social's more creative, and HubSpot's a little more strategic on the content side. But those are some practical resources. So I think we've hit the 30 mark. So if I'm gonna close out of my stop sharing my screen. So I'm back. So if people have questions, it might be a bigger, it might be a smaller question. I'm gonna turn it over to that now.
We do have a question in the chat, Peter, that is asking if there is any advantage in using Facebook ads over, for instance, Google ads.
Yeah, that's a great question. Facebook, Google ads tend to be better at targeting people when they want to buy something, but they're not sure yet what they want to buy. So if I need to buy a new pair of running shoes, and I Google, I Google best pair of trail running shoes under, $150. They know that they're running, that the person knows that they're looking for running shoes. And that's where Google ads would be very helpful. Facebook ads are better at driving awareness for your brand. So getting your brand image, like getting your name in front of people who would be interested, like potentially, like passively interested, right? Like, I'm interested in sustainable, all organic clothing, but I'm not actively looking to buy right now. Facebook would be a better place to run those types of ads. And Facebook is also a better place to run to run retargeting ads. So the big thing with Facebook is retargeting people. With Google, you don't really retarget people if they look at your website. Google's moving in that direction, but it's not quite there yet. Facebook is a lot better at retargeting people who've shown interest in your product somehow. And Facebook also has a unique element in the sense that a lot of statistics and a lot of psychological studies show that people are a lot more comfortable on Facebook, and they're more vulnerable on Facebook. Like, Facebook or Instagram is a more intimate connection into somebody's life than Google tends to be. Facebook tends to be a little more emotional. Google tends to be a little more rational.
There is another question. Could you explain an example of a DPA?
Yes. So thanks for the question, Mark. An example of a DPA or dynamic product ad would be I upload my catalog into Facebook. So I sync my product selection or service selection with the Facebook shopping experience. And then when somebody, I set up, let's say I set up DPAs then, I say target people who've looked at any product in my selection. And I want to say, I want the ad to say this, and it's going to show it's going to show the product or the products that they've looked at. So maybe they've looked at 3 or 5 products on my, or services on my website. The dynamic product ad will serve up those 3 to 5 products or services, like in a nice little carousel where when they click, it scrolls. So that's like a very low funnel. That's a very low funnel way to target people. Let's see. Okay.
I think I unmuted you if you want to ask the question directly. Because I think you haven't finished the question. Where are you?
Oh, are you talking to Gian or Yan?
Yeah. Do you see your question?
If you are a winter jacket manufacturer and want to sell your product on the e-commerce marketplace, how do you get the product known to the audience? It's so I touched on this briefly. This is a big overall. Facebook ads is a very, I think there's a lot of information in there, and I wanted to move quickly to the kind of like the structure, how to set them up with segmenting. But besides like like if you're starting off, besides having a lookalike audience based on your customers, or besides just retargeting people who have visited your website, maybe those numbers are very low. Maybe you don't have people really visiting your website yet. Like I just launched my store and I want people to know about it. You can target what would be what's called a core audience, or it used to be called like an interest audience, where you go in and you go in and you create an audience that targets people on specific behavior and interests. So maybe, and Facebook is not consistent with providing specific opportunities for this, but assuming like we can do this, you would target maybe people who are interested in winter sports, who do winter sports, who are interested in these 3 winter sport celebrities and these 5 winter sport brands, who live in I don't know, cold places. Let's say you're just targeting people in North America, so you target people near ski resorts in Canada and the US or something like that. So you're able to create you're able to manually, so really Facebook can either select the types of interests and engagement for you and target those people, or you can select it manually. And so what the example I'm giving right now is selecting manually the different interests that you want to target to drive awareness. It's a less cost-effective way, because you're going to run into a good number of people who are not actually interested in your product, but it's the way to start off. It's the way to build an awareness of your brand.
So on that, like tied to that, one question that Pete, I was actually wondering, is that what kind of advertisement budget that a small business should allocate when going for these ads?
That's a great question. It's a tough question to answer without knowing specific details, because certain types of audiences are going to be more saturated, or certain types of interests or data sets are going to be more targeted than others. So if you're in a market where there's a lot of product options or opportunities, that's going to be more expensive than if you're you know, a unique product that doesn't have a big market yet. That being said, you could even run something as little as $5 a day, $3 a day. Especially if you're a small business, you could run just a couple dollars a day and retarget people with that budget, retarget people who've shown interest. So who visited your website, and strategically like segment the audience based on how they engage your website. And then as that starts to show return, as you start to have a return on ad spend from that small budget, you can allocate a certain percentage of that budget to some sort of awareness ad to drive traffic to your website. So if we're dealing with a small budget, I would first recommend retargeting people who visited your site and then moving to awareness ads. It's not an extremely fast way to grow, but it's a consistent way. It's a consistent way to grow, and it's the most cost-effective way to use an ad spend budget. A note on that too is if let's say you're running retargeting ads at $10 a day, and you're making, you know, your return on ad spend is 10 times your ad budget, right? So you're spending $10 a day, and you're making, for every $10, $100. And you decide, okay, I'm going to scale that. Instead of $10 a day, I'm going to do $15 a day. And if your return on ad spend starts to drop as you scale your budget, you know that you've maxed out your audience. You know that everybody, that the entire audience is seeing, everybody who would purchase from that audience is purchasing. And then you don't want to continue scaling. You want to keep it at $10 a day until that audience increases, that retargeting audience increases, and then you try scaling it again. And if that time the scaling works, then you can keep it that new budget number. But it's really, I think one of the benefits of running social ads on Facebook and Instagram is the behavioral data is so comprehensive that even for a small dollar amount, Facebook is able to give you like a return. There's a learning phase at the beginning of each campaign. So maybe like the first couple days is a learning phase where Facebook is optimizing your ads and understanding who they're actually effective with. But past that learning point, they're a very effective way to target people and increase conversions.
That's good.
Good question, thanks. Okay, any special consideration about Instagram cost groups? Could you maybe, could we unmute them and maybe have them explain a little bit of their question?
Yeah, Juicy, you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi. You've been just talking a lot about Facebook and just a little bit about Google Ads, and you just mentioned Instagram. I was trying just to picture which is best for what. Maybe you can suggest a social media that is targeted more on some specific thing.
So you're wondering which is better to, like, is Facebook or is Instagram a better platform to target on? Is kind of,
well, you said earlier that Facebook is more emotional and Google is more rational, and it's more about marketing, something that you're trying to buy. I was just wondering if you can spend a note about Instagram. Is it even worth investing in there, or for what?
Right. Great. Yeah, no, that's a great question and great great distinction. I would, when I'm talking about, when I'm talking about Facebook ads, I would, everything I've said about Facebook ads, I would put Instagram ads in there too. When you go into the Facebook ads manager and you run ads, you can connect your Instagram account and do the exact same thing as everything I've said with Facebook. You can do the exact same with Instagram, and you can even let the Facebook ads manager optimize for you. So decide maybe Instagram or maybe Facebook, one of those two is actually a better place for those ads to run, and Facebook will automatically run the ads on the better platform. So I would include Instagram in what I've said about Facebook. It's from a practical perspective, it's more or less the same. The way the algorithms work is more or less the same.
So is there like a centralized way where one can essentially do all of these platform together, or one does have to have an account in Facebook, account in Instagram, account in here and there, and do this?
So for the Facebook products, there's one centralized location. It's in the Facebook Business Manager. So if you have a Facebook or Instagram account for your business, you're probably using the Facebook Business Manager to monitor and use that Instagram or Facebook page or account. And so in the same location, the ads manager is in the same location there. So it's all centralized.
Peter, there is a question from Luca. 3 Crunches says, how would you integrate Facebook in a content market strategy based on YouTube or a blog? HubSpot is a good resource about this. Would you see Facebook as a content maker or as a promotional site? And can you give some example of how you drive traffic from Facebook to website or other platforms?
Okay, let me just read it over. There's a couple different elements to that question, so let me read it over again quickly. How do you integrate Facebook in a content marketing strategy? HubSpot is a good resource about this. Would you see Facebook as a content maker or as a promotional site? Can you give some examples? So fundamentally, speaking generally overall social media, if it's Instagram or if it's Facebook or if it's Twitter. I mean, we could even talk about like Reddit. Like Reddit's a form of social media. The fundamental goal of social media from a business perspective is obviously to build like a brand image, like a brand voice, but to present a personality or a more personal side of the brand, and different and engage with your customers that way. More and more companies are using either Instagram direct messages or Facebook Messenger, or Twitter DMs as a resource for customer service. Like if somebody tweets that they're unhappy with the product, then the customer service will reach out through a direct message on Twitter and say, hey, we're sorry, like let's work through this and solve your issues. Or maybe in the comments, the comments below a post on Facebook, there's a customer like saying, oh, I love this so much. I wish that it had this, these 3 extra features. And the customer service or the social media manager would say, hey, we're glad you're part of we're glad you're part of our community. We're stoked about the fact that you love our product, and those are great recommendations. Thanks for sending them in. And actually we want to give you, because you're giving feedback, we want to give you a free t-shirt. So, give us your shipping address and we'll send you a free t-shirt as thank you. So fundamentally it's a way for brands to present more of a personal voice and image. And so depending on what the voice is and who the audience is, maybe one social media platform is more important than others. So maybe so maybe what would an example be? Without trying to think of a specific example, I know there's a lot of health coaches who target young moms, and in their case, Instagram is a better platform to engage on than Facebook or Twitter, because most young moms follow health influencers on Instagram or fitness influencers on Instagram. So to answer specifically about Facebook tends to be a little bit more intellectual. Facebook tends to be a little more long form content, like a paragraph or so, like several sentences, unlike Twitter, Twitter's like 1 or 2 sentences and moves very quickly. So how to integrate Facebook in a content marketing strategy is I would take the brand voice and image into consideration, and the types of content you're creating, and who the target audience is, and if those things are appropriate for the somewhat longer form, a little more intellectual content, and the right audience or demographic is engaging on Facebook, then I would use Facebook as a or maybe the primary platform for that. So that's a good question. That's a little bit more of a complicated question.
So way to collect data.
It's also a great way to collect.
Yeah.
It's a great way to collect data. It tells you a lot about, and honestly too, at the very beginning of when you're launching a brand, if it's like, it's a service, if it's a product, if it's a personal brand, there's going to be testing involved. There's going to be the discovery phase of, which platforms are the right, like what's the right voice, who actually is the customer, like using the Facebook pixel, using Google Analytics, like looking at that information to understand who actually is the customer and what actually is my voice. So there's a certain element of discovery there. If you Google primary Facebook demographics or primary Instagram demographics or primary Twitter demographics, really the resources that I shared earlier, like HubSpot or Sprout Social, honestly, if you want to learn more about which platform is the right one to use, Sprout Social is a good place to go look at their blogs a little bit. But if you Google, primary demographic of Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you're going to find reports. There's plenty of reports out there that kind of outlay, the demographics. Let's see. Does that help answer, Luca?
Awesome. It will be long, but we've talked about it, and I think there's more that could be said, but good. So, a question about so
there is a question, Peter, about how do you make sure that if you have a business or if you're trying to sell something, your business or your product gets shown at the top of the list in a search engine like Google. So if I look for ski jackets and I'm selling ski jackets, how do I make sure that my ski jackets get shown
at the top? Yeah,
prominently? So
a quick practical note on that: if you're trying to sell ski jackets, I would run ads on I would run ads on Instagram and then maybe Facebook before I run ads on Google. The reason for that, quickly, and then I'm going to go to answer your question. The reason for that is there's brands like North Face, Patagonia, Marmot, Mammoth. There's brands that have huge ad budgets and have been working in Google Ads for a long time. They've really optimized their Google Ads. And so for those two reasons, for for demand and competition, Google ads are going to be very expensive to run for ski jackets. That being said, the way you would make sure you're at the top is a couple different things. Looking at the ad itself, you want the ad copy to be related and relevant to, one, the product you're selling. So if somebody looks at the ad and clicks on it, they're not going to be surprised when they get to the product page. Like, the product is going to be a result of your ad copy. So you want to make sure the ad is relevant to the product. You want to make sure the ad is relevant to the keywords. So if I Google, if I Google ski jacket, or if I Google fall vest, and a ski jacket comes up, that's not going to be relevant to the search, to the keywords. So you want to make sure it's relevant to the keywords. You also, another factor, the Google algorithm is over the last 10 years, even if it's become a lot more complex. It tracks things like keywords on your web page. So how relevant is the actual, not just the product, but the whole web page to the ad. So there's people whose entire job it is to write product descriptions that fit with the relevant Google searches that are happening right now, because the words in the description need to match what people are searching. So that's SEO, search engine optimization. Backlinking is not as much of an issue. They're basically, backlinking is where other companies link to your product. That's not as important for products specifically, but also website experience. So if you have a lot of people who go to your website and look at the product, put it in their cart, and purchase from a Google ad, that tells Google that the ad is very relevant, and the people are probably going to have a good experience and probably going to buy if they see your ad. And that's going to increase your probability of showing at the top list. However, if a lot of people click on your ad and go to see the web page, and even before the page is done loading, or let's say the page takes a really long time, they close out of your page, that's going to tell Google it's not a good experience. Visiting your page is not a good experience, and they're going to move you lower in the rankings. So ad search keyword fit is one element. Ad product fit is another element, and then user experience on your page and purchase probability. So the conversion rate are all things. And search engine marketing. So if you Google how to do SEM, that's going to give you that's going to lay out those basics there.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is any other question in the chat. Razib just posted the link to our LinkedIn group where people can find you and reach out to you. As Razib said, this event is recorded, and so we will make it available. In a couple of weeks, there will be another newsletter from Ergun with a list of all these resources, but I do want to announce that the next skill and development meeting will be on September 16 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will be titled The Emergence and Future of Data Science. We will have two awesome speakers. They will be announced soon. Actually, yeah, Razib already posted the Eventbrite link, so you can read about them and the event itself. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Of course, Peter is available if you want to reach out to him and ask more questions and more resources. Peter, do you have anything to say to close it?
No, thanks for having me. I hope it's a large topic, and so I hope it was helpful. I hope it was informative. And thanks for hopping on with me.
Yes, for sure. We know whom to ask now, at least. All right. Thank you. And thank everybody for coming. Enjoy